All right, let's talk about building smart systems. Systems that don't just follow a script, but can actually think through a complex problem. Today, we're diving deep into a really cool concept that makes this possible. It's called hierarchical planning. And trust me, it's a game changer. Okay, be honest. You've totally been here, right? A senior dev drops a ticket in your lap for some huge new feature, and you just stare at it. Your brain goes completely blank. It feels impossible, like this massive tangled ball of yarn. If that feeling sounds familiar, well, you're in the right place. We're gonna untangle that knot. So, what's the first thing we usually do when we're staring down that huge task? We make a list, right? A big, messy, overwhelming list. And it looks something like this. We call this flat planning. It's just a brain dump. You've got set up the database, write the API endpoint, deploy to staging. Oh, don't forget to run tests, configure environment variables. It's all just thrown together. Pretty soon, you're lost. What comes first? Do these things depend on each other? Can I do any of this at the same time? It's basically organized chaos. Now look, I'm not saying this is always bad. For a super simple task like make a sandwich, a flat list is perfectly fine. Get bread, get fillings, put them together, easy. But real-world software deals with way more complex stuff. Think about a user asking, hey, give me a full expense analysis for last quarter. That's not one thing. That's a multi-intent query. It means you have to fetch data, then create a chart, and summarize the results. A simple to-do list is just going to fall apart. So, if that messy list is the problem, what's the fix? Well, we need a smarter way to do this. We need to think about planning inside of planning. Exactly. Now we level it up. We're moving from that simple, flat list to a much more powerful, structured way of thinking. And this isn't just a little change. It's a whole new way of looking at the problem. And this is the big idea, hierarchical planning. It sounds fancy, but the concept is actually pretty intuitive. You take a huge, scary goal, and you break it down. You decompose it into a tree of smaller, bite-sized sub-goals. And then you break those down into the actual concrete steps you need to take. It's exactly what it says on the tin, planning inside of planning. Just look at how clean this is compared to that messy list from before. So our main goal is to analyze last quarter's expenses. Okay, that breaks down into a couple of sub-goals, right? We need to fetch all the expense data, and we need to generate a summary report. And then, inside each of those, you have the simple, concrete steps. This isn't just a list anymore, it's a map. It gives you so much more clarity and control. Okay, so this looks nicer, for sure, but is it really better? Why is this hierarchical way of thinking so much more powerful than our good old to-do list? Let's get into the specifics. The difference is just night and day. On one side, you've got flat planning. Dependencies are a total nightmare. One little thing goes wrong, and the entire house of cards can come tumbling down. But with hierarchical planning, you have structure, you have control. If an error happens, you know exactly which little branch of the tree it's on, so you can fix it without wrecking everything else. And here's a huge win. You can easily see which subtasks don't depend on each other. That means you can run them in parallel. That makes everything way faster and more efficient. All right, so this planning thing is obviously super useful, but it's just one piece of the puzzle, right? So where does it actually fit in a real system? Let's zoom out and look at the entire pipeline. So here's the journey of a request. From start to finish, it all begins with the user's query. That query hits a router, which figures out what kind of task it is. And then, and this is the important part, it gets sent to our hierarchical planner. This is the real brain of the operation. It takes that complex request and does what we just talked about. It breaks it down, it creates that beautiful structured tree. Once the plan is made, it gets handed off to an executor. The executor is the doer. It just follows the plan, uses whatever tools it needs, and gets the job done, sending the final answer back to the user. The planner is really the architect here, designing the blueprint for success. Okay, let's bring it all home. What we've been talking about isn't just a new design pattern or another component to build. It's actually a whole new way to think about solving problems. And if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this quote. It's not just what steps, but how steps are grouped and dependent. Think about that for a second. The real magic, the real intelligence, isn't in just making a long list of things to do. It's in understanding the relationships between those things. That's how you build systems that feel like they're actually thinking. So the next time you're faced with one of those giant, scary tasks, I want you to remember this. Don't just make a flat list. Build a tree, break the problem down, figure out the dependencies. Honestly, this way of thinking is like a superpower for a developer. So now that you have it, what are you going to build?